In the last lesson, we added an ngIf to our div. And I mentioned that this asterisk means a template. Now, the template itself is this entire piece. So we have the div and 3 components inside. And then when things render out, we have the parent div, which is this one here. The first child div, which is this one here. And as we continue to grow our applications, it might actually cause some layout issues. For example, if we wanted to use Flexbox on this particular element, we can't directly target those nodes inside. Whereas what we could in fact do is use something called a virtual element, or I like to call it a virtual element because it doesn't get rendered. Now this is called ngContainer, the Angular container. So if we highlight our div and change this over to ngContainer, we can inspect. And we can then see we have donut list, one div, which is this one here, this ngContainer in our source code. However, the rendered DOM is actually just 3 donut cards. We do, in fact, have this ngContainer, which is down here as an HTML comment, which is how Angular is showing how it's keeping track of whether it should render or not re-render our components. And interestingly, you can see this ngIf3, which I can assume means that we have 3 items in our array. If we go and delete one of these, it then changes over to 2. So Angular is using this as the expression, and it's then printing it out in the DOM for us, which may also be helpful for some debugging purposes as well. So this is a nice way, and I like to use this approach a lot. There is also another way using this concept of a template, which we're going to come on to in the next few lessons, but ngContainer was added after as a bit more of a flexible container. Firstly, we can use any directives in their true sense, such as using this asterisk syntax. So this is an approach that I like to take using ngContainer. It's a nice way to just jump out of the rendered HTML world and just simply control the components that are then being rendered below. And as I mentioned, if you're using things such as modern CSS APIs, it will then give us finer control over the rendering and position of our components. With this in mind, we're going to now jump into the next lesson and talk about ngIf, else, and then, which is the next iteration of the syntax, which allows us to do some more advanced things as well.